My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. There is a very beautiful building in the city where I live, New York, that has a long history. It was built at the end of the 1800s, and it is a beautiful example of late Victorian architecture. It's a large house on the Upper West Side, and recently it underwent a renovation that was long overdue. The house was very old. It needed a lot of repairs, and it has a lot going for it. It's a beautiful house, but with one glaring problem, and that it's very dark on the inside. It's very, there's just not a lot of light when you're inside the house. And maybe that was the architect's original intention. Maybe the aesthetic back then in the Victorian period was to have darker spaces, maybe because they felt it was more intimate or cozy. Or perhaps it was due to changes made by subsequent owners. Maybe they introduced more divisions in the house or lower ceilings or less windows. But the fact is that the house has always felt very dark, almost cave-like. Not only because of the few windows, but also poor artificial lighting. Sometimes a single bulb would illuminate a whole room. So it was very dark and kind of depressing. And now it's been renovated. And what were the tweaks that this renovation carried out in this house? What were the decisions that the architect now has made? Well, for one, they've introduced bigger and better windows with cleaner and newer glass. They've introduced skylights so that more light comes in from above. They've removed some of the walls that were unnecessary, opening things up. They introduced new and better light fixtures and more of them and more tastefully placed so that the house lights up. And what a change, right? With this renovation, this old Victorian house has come back to life. And it's due to many things, but one of the main reasons why it's come back to life is because they've let the light in. You walk into this house now and it's bright and cheerful and everything feels light and airy. And everything even feels bigger too. The house just feels bigger because for whatever reason, it's like the light amplifies the space. You can also notice more the beauty of the house because there's more light, so you can pick up on more details in the decoration, in the finer aspects of the design of the house. It's like the house has had a new birth, and all because more light was let in. Jesus, today in the gospel, you present us with an imagery which in some sense is very obvious, and it's striking in the way in which you tell us so matter-of-factly the following. You say, Jesus said to the crowds, "No one lights a lamp to cover it with a bowl or to put it under a bed. No, he puts it on a lampstand so that people may see the light when they come in. For nothing is hidden, but it will be made clear. Nothing secret, but it will be known and brought to light." And Lord, we said that this word of yours, it's so obvious, right? It's so clear. Obviously, no one lights a lamp to cover it up. No one lights something to then put it under the bed where it can't be appreciated. No, light is meant to give light. Otherwise, it would be pretty useless. Light would be pretty useless if it had nothing to shine on. Light obviously is not for itself. Rather, we see things by light. Light illuminates things upon which it shines. In fact, our ability to see in general, our differentiation of color, it all depends on light. So too does life. Life depends on the light of the sun. So it's important, and it has a direct benefit on so many things. We can think again of that house, that Victorian house that was kind of dark and decrepit. And just with introducing more light, the light that was always there outside the house, into it, it breathes in new life. And so what about this light that's hid under a bushel or under a bed or under a bowl? Well, it's a light that goes unused, and that's very unfortunate. Jesus, when you speak about light in this sense, it sounds so matter of fact and obvious, but you're referring to a spiritual problem, not so much a physical problem, because very few people would take a turned on lamp and stick it under a bed. That's kind of absurd. But this certainly can happen in the spiritual life, because you, my brother and sister, you and I, we are meant to be other Christs. We are meant to be like Christ, light to the world. We are light by which people around us come to see what is truly worth seeing. By the very quality and integrity of our lives, we shed light. We illumine what is beautiful and we reveal what is ugly if we are living close to Christ. Are we shedding light on the lives of other people? Are we, with our own love and our own witness of faith, opening up those windows of the house and allowing light to come in? Are we giving that witness? Because, the implication with all this is that without vibrant Christians in the world, without lighted lamps in the world is a much worse place. The world is left in darkness. This is from Bishop Barron, who points out how with the lack of Christian lights in the world falls into crisis. He's referring to the last century, where we saw so many terrible crises of humanity. He says, without vibrant Christians, the world is a much worse place. Let me illustrate this principle with an example. One of the most painful truths of the last century, he's speaking of the 20th century, is that the weakness of Christian witness allows some of the worst elements in society to flourish. Think of the rise of the evil powers that created World War II. Christianity had become so weak, so uncompelling, so attenuated, that great evil was allowed to flourish. Yes, indeed, there were a handful of powerful Christian resistors, but let's face it, the overwhelmingly vast majority of Christians either supported Hitler or remained in silence out of either fear or indifference. It's hard for us to recognize this sometimes, but the terrible tragedy of Nazism, of the Holocaust, of World War II, that originated in a Christian country. Europe was a Christian place. Germany was a Christian nation. And yet, Christianity had become weak. Just like that Victorian house that over time had become darker and more stuffy, and where the light illuminating a single room in that house was just like a tiny little light bulb that was getting dimmer and dimmer. This can happen in the church when we, as Christians, do not give off the light of Christ. And so let your light shine before men. As kids, we learned that song, "This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Hide it under a bushel? No, I'm going to let it shine." Jesus, we sing this to you right now, and we make a resolution to be more coherent in our behavior, that our faith truly shine through our conversations, our relationships, our way of working, our way of playing, our family life. That there be this deep consistency between all the parts of my life so that the light of my love for you, right, your light, Jesus, shines through all the rooms of my house, through all the parts of my life, bringing back to life this very dark and confused world. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help in putting them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.